I don't remember the first time they called me a disgrace. It wasn't with words. It was in their eyes. In the way conversations turned toward my brother with shining pride and slid right past me like I was just background noise. I'm Maya Delacroix. And in my family's eyes, I was always the shadow, the older sister who didn't go to med school, didn't marry a high-powered attorney, didn't have her photo framed in the hallway next to a diploma. I didn't belong anymore, even though I shared their blood. When I left the fire department after 17 years after smoke-choked nights and third-degree burns on my left shoulder, they didn't ask why. They didn't want to know. My mom just gave me that distant look and whispered to someone she couldn't handle it. My younger brother Nathan was the golden child, a resident physician at a top Houston hospital. Tall, polished, always the loudest laugh in the room. Every family dinner, every birthday, every holiday became a showcase where he stood tall, and I faded into the corners. When I showed up, my mom would say, "Oh, that's Maya. She teaches kids some kind of survival stuff." They never knew, never wanted to know that I once charged into a burning cabin in Bridger, Montana back in 2017, that I pulled 8 people out alive, including a man they actually know. Though they didn't recognize him as the man I saved. I was alive. I was standing right there. But somehow I was never enough to be truly seen. And that was the cruelest thing of all. Not that they hated me, but that they erased me without even realizing they did. I still remember the sound of the roof groaning above me, the way the timbers screamed as the fire devoured them. The cabin in Bridger felt alive like some wounded animal lashing out. Smoke poured through the cracks thick and bitter like it was trying to drown the world. My left arm was on fire. I knew it. The skin was blistering, the smell of scorched flesh seeping through my mask. But I didn't let go. I gripped tighter onto the man's jacket collar, dragging his limp body across the burning floor. Blood from the gash on my forehead dripped down his face as if binding us together. I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. He was breathing barely, and that was all I needed to know. I remember shouting through the mask, "Don't sleep. I won't let you die in here." When we broke through the front door, the fire exploded behind us like it was furious I'd defied it. My knees hit the dirt hard. My mask slipped. And then darkness. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed. My left shoulder was wrapped in layers of gauze. My wrist barely moved. The doctor said I was lucky. I didn't feel lucky. I felt hollow. The next 11 months were hell. I had to relearn how to hold a spoon, how to twist a doorknob, how to stop jolting awake every time I heard a smoke alarm. When I could finally stretch my arm again, I knew one thing for certain: I would never wear that gear again. Not because I was weak, because I had already given everything. I left quietly. No retirement party, no speech. I mailed in my badge from Texas. Now I live in Austin, renting a tiny room above a mechanic's shop, teaching kids how to escape burning buildings. No one here knows I once made the front page of the Montana Tribune under the headline, "Firefighter Saves 8 Collapses After Final Rescue." No one except me, and the people who chose to forget. I almost didn't go. My mom's text had been short and polished: dinner Saturday for Nathan's promotion. Dress nicely. Please don't say anything strange in front of the guests. I typed out "I can't make it," but didn't send. A small stubborn piece of me still believed that maybe just showing up and staying quiet would be enough. The restaurant was downtown, one of those upscale Italian places with menus that don't list prices and chandeliers that look like modern art. Everyone from my family was already there, pressed, smiling, glowing in the warm light like they were at a gala, not a dinner. Nathan stood at the center like he belonged there. White shirt, crisp tie, the color of slate, shaking hands like he was campaigning for something. I hovered by the edge, clutching my purse like it might shield me. Mom came over and lightly tapped my elbow. "Sweetheart, sit over there by Aunt Lisa and Uncle Ron." I sat, awkwardly. Uncle Ron, already a glass of wine in, leaned over. "So what are you doing in Austin again?" Didn't see your name at med school graduation last year. I gave him the smile I'd practiced for years. I trained teens and community staff in survival and emergency response skills. He blinked. Oh, like ropes and tents and stuff? He laughed. So did the table. Not cruelly, just enough to sting. When Nathan's cake was wheeled out a pristine 2-tier white with fondant stethoscopes wrapped around the base, Mom leaned in whispering, "Let's not make this a big night, okay? It's Nathan's moment. No need to make people uncomfortable." I didn't say a word. I stared at the flickering candles, wishing they'd burn down faster. Then somewhere between dessert and polite clapping, a man at the next table turned and squinted at me. "Excuse me, were you at the Bridger fire in 2017? I froze. He stepped closer. "You dragged me out of that cabin. You shouted through your mask, 'Don't sleep, I won't let you die.' That was you, wasn't it?" Before I could respond, the room went utterly silent. Forks hovered midair. Nathan's face drained of color. My parents blinked like they'd missed a line in a play. And then the man said loud enough for everyone to hear, "She saved my life." I don't know what froze the room more, his voice or the silence that followed it, but one thing was certain: I couldn't disappear this time. The man stood tall and steady, silver hair catching the candlelight, as if time paused just long enough for him to speak the truth. She saved my life. I was unconscious in a burning cabin in Bridger, June 2017. And she, Maya Delacroix, pulled me out when I thought I was already dead. I heard my mom gasp, sharp, involuntary, like she had swallowed something too big. Then he turned to Nathan, my brother, and said, "I never knew you were related." She never mentioned it. When I woke up in the hospital, the firefighter who saved me had vanished. I stood still, my legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. No flight, no flinch, just presence. Then he turned back to me, eyes gleaming with something like reverence. "Thank you. The city gave you an award. And I heard a grant, too. But you never used any of it, did you?" And just like that, the room tilted. People turned their heads. Some stared. Some blinked. Shock. Shame. Something raw and unsure. No one knew what to do with the truth when it didn't come wrapped in applause or approval. Nathan looked like the air had left his lungs. I finally found my voice dry, buried under years of smoke. I didn't want to be a story. I was just doing my job. Somewhere across the room, a spoon clattered to the floor. The metallic clang echoed like a starter pistol, breaking the silence. Whispers stirred. She was a firefighter. But how come no one knew? My mother turned to me slowly. Her lips trembled. "Maya, is that true? Did you get money?" I nodded. "I never used it. Not a dime." She blinked, like trying to rewind every memory and make sense of who I really was. As if suddenly unsure how to mother a daughter she never truly saw. My father said nothing. He just set down his wine glass slowly and stared at his own hands like they'd betrayed him. I never wanted to be the center of anything. But that night, under chandeliers and linen napkins, the truth stepped forward, not needing spotlights, not demanding applause. It just needed one voice, and one look that dared to see it. That night, after the Bridger story had broken open like a sealed envelope, I became the reluctant center of attention. People started looking at me differently. Some were awed, some were awkward, but all of them noticed. For the first time, I wasn't invisible in my own family. I just wish I still had been. The next morning, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was syrupy sweet, too smooth to trust, sweetheart. We were so surprised. And proud, too, of course. Everyone's still talking about you. Even the Sunday paper might run something. Why don't you come over for dinner Saturday night? Nathan will be there. We just want to hear more about your story. It's time we come together. I recognized that tone. It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. I went. Part curiosity, part foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, a red banner stretched across the porch, "Welcome home, hero." In the kitchen, a pot of my childhood mushroom soup simmered on the stove. A vase of white lilies sat on the table, and everyone looked dressed for Easter in July. Nathan pulled out a chair for me, his smile warmer than I remembered. "Next time you should say something. The press is starting to ask for your name." I sat, took a few bites. Then Mom gently put down her spoon, clasped her hands. "You still have that money right," we were thinking. Nathan's research proposal could use some backing. Just a portion, dear. It could help him go so far. Help all of us. I set my spoon down, looked at her, not angry, not shocked, just empty. Nathan chimed in, voice smooth as velvet. "I get why you kept quiet. I really do. But now that everyone knows, you don't have to carry it alone anymore, right?" I nodded slowly. "You're right. But it's still my decision, not a family asset." The air thickened like burnt syrup. The smiles around the table faded just enough to reveal their edges. But I stayed seated calm, like silence had become my sharpest weapon. The rest of dinner rolled on with forced chuckles and dessert that tasted faintly of cinnamon, and betrayal sugar-coated. I thought it would end after that dinner. I believed a clear no was enough to close the door they never really deserved to walk through. But I forgot something: people don't stop when you say no. They stop when they realize there's nothing left to take. A week later, Nathan showed up at my door unannounced. He stood there holding a bottle of wine so expensive I knew he couldn't afford it. 3 knocks. When I opened the door, he walked in like he owned the place. "I need your help," he said, dropping into the armchair like it owed him comfort. I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. "How much?" He hesitated, then looked at me, really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I saw it: real panic. Not the kind he faked for sympathy, but fear that lived in the pupils. Raw. Ugly. "I owe over $120,000. Gambling, Vegas. I thought I could win it back. Then I borrowed. Now if I don't pay, I lose my residency. They'll destroy me. And if it leaks, your name could get dragged into it too." I blinked, mouth dry. "So you want 50 grand? He nodded quickly. "Just a loan. I swear I'll pay it back once I get that research grant. It's practically guaranteed." I stared at him, said nothing. And in that silence, a truth burned through me. If I weren't the woman who once ran into fire, if I were just your broke sister in a room above a garage, would you still be here? The answer hung in the air. "I can't help you," I said quietly. Not cold, just tired. Bone tired. His face changed. The kindness drained like water from cracked glass. "You'll regret this," he spat. "Not just for me. For you. People don't stay impressed for long, Maya. One hero's story can become tomorrow's punchline real fast." He left. The bottle of wine sat unopened on my counter like a dare. I didn't touch it. I just sat at the table staring at the door he'd walked through. And somewhere in the silence I asked myself, if I have nothing left for them to take, will they still come knocking? The first call came on a Tuesday morning just as I was pouring coffee. A woman's voice chirped through the speaker, sugary familiar, the kind that smelled like PTA meetings and potlucks. "Maya, sweetheart, it's Louise, your mom's best friend. Remember me? I gave you that fairy tale book in 3rd grade. I answered politely, distantly. And then came the compliments like waves crashing. "I just read the article, so proud, so inspiring. I'm actually working on this beautiful charity for underprivileged girls in Guatemala. If you could contribute just a seed investment really to keep hope alive." I apologized. She didn't let me finish. More praise, more flattery. And then even just $10,000 or $20,000 would make such a difference. I hung up with a knot in my chest tight as a clamp. That was only the beginning. Within 48 hours, 3 more calls came. Uncle Franklin, who'd never remembered my birthday, was now launching a fitness center for seniors. A friend of Nathan's was creating a wellness app. A cousin I hadn't spoken to since high school, the same one who mocked me for wearing clearance shoes, was healing now and needed funds for a cafe rooted in trauma recovery. They all opened with, "We're so proud of you," and closed with numbers. $50,000, $25,000, just a little if your heart's open. I don't know how long I sat on my kitchen floor, back pressed against the fridge, phone face down beside me. On the table, the flowers from that hero dinner still stood. The petals had begun to brown at the edges. That's when it hit me, to them, I wasn't Maya. I was a wallet with a pulse, a walking comma followed by 5 digits. They didn't need to know I'd nearly died in a fire. They only needed to know I survived and kept the check. My story didn't move them. It just motivated them to ask. The text came on a Wednesday night. No emojis. No love, Mom. "We're having a family meeting this weekend. Please come." I stared at it for a while, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to delete it. But the other part, the part that still hoped to be seen, to be heard, betrayed me. I typed, "I'll be there." I didn't know what I expected. An apology. A late hug, or just a room where I could speak without being cut off. But the moment I stepped into my parents' living room, I knew I had made a mistake. The chairs were arranged in a circle like some intervention scene from a reality show. Aunt Ruth, Uncle Paul, a few cousins I hadn't seen since high school. Everyone sat stiff, avoiding my eyes. The air was thick, charged. And then I saw him, a stranger in a slate gray suit, seated beside my father, leather briefcase, clipboard. That corporate calm of someone used to packaging problems. "This is Tom," my dad said quickly. "A family friend. He's a lawyer." I didn't sit down. I asked, "What is this?" Aunt Ruth stood first, clutching a twisted tissue like it was a script. "Nathan's in danger. The people he owes, they're not just lenders, they're dangerous." "We're scared, Maya." Nods followed, murmurs, shifting in seats. My mom chimed in, voice cracking. "He's not perfect, but he's your brother. He's tried to follow the right path, becoming a doctor, making us proud. But if he's arrested, if there's a scandal, the family name suffers. Maya, please. You understand, don't you?" That question hit like a slap made of ice. I scanned the room, a circle of people demanding sacrifice, none of whom ever asked what I had already given. "What about me?" I asked. My voice didn't shake. Has anyone in this room ever asked what I needed to survive? What it cost me to come back whole? Has anyone asked that before asking for money? Silence. My father looked down, couldn't meet my eyes. I exhaled. Not from exhaustion, from clarity. This wasn't family. This was a boardroom. I didn't come here to save anyone. But as I looked at my mother's tear-streaked face, real or rehearsed, I couldn't tell anymore. And the anxious stares from cousins I barely knew, I found myself standing on a thin line between bitterness and grace. Not forgiveness, just self-preservation. I stood tall, then said quietly, "I'll help. But not because I trust you. I'm helping because I don't want to watch someone else fall into a fire I once crawled out of." A wave of relief swept the room. Someone clapped. Nathan looked down, his voice thick. "You're an angel, Maya. I swear I won't let you down." I held up a hand. "I'm not finished. I'll give you $20,000. Not a penny more." The room froze. "And there are conditions." I turned to Nathan first. "You enroll in a certified 60-day gambling rehabilitation program. You start within 2 weeks. If you drop out, you pay me back in full." Nathan frowned but nodded. "Second, no one in this room, including you, will mention the rest of that money again. Not as a hint, a joke, or a dream. Not one word." My mother's lips trembled. Her mascara was starting to run. "You don't have to be so harsh, Maya." I looked her in the eye. "No, I wasn't harsh enough before. That's how we got here." Nathan stepped forward and put his arm around my shoulder like he'd earned it. "You're a lifesaver. I'll fix this. I promise." I nodded. but I didn't hug him back. That night back in my little apartment above the auto shop, I stared at myself in the mirror and whispered, "You're not an angel. You're a fool who still hopes." The next morning I transferred the money, $20,000, no note attached. 10 days passed in silence. No calls, no updates. I started to think maybe this time was different, until I opened Instagram, and there was Nathan, wearing a glittery suit, holding a flaming cocktail, grinning like a god. The caption read, "Work hard, play harder. Vegas vibes." I used to think fire was the scariest thing in the world. That was before I saw my name become a Reddit headline. It started with pings, dozens, then hundreds. My phone buzzed nonstop texts, tags, alerts. At first I thought it was a glitch. Then I opened Reddit. The post was already viral. "My sister used to be a firefighter. Now she hoards $300,000 while our family falls apart," by a concerned brother. No name, but every sentence screamed Bryce. Word for word. The post spread like wildfire. Thousands of upvotes, hundreds of comments, all feeding the flames. Calls herself a hero, but lets her brother drown. Maybe fire burns compassion right out of you. Quiet heroes aren't always good people. Poor brother. She sounds cold. I couldn't read the rest. My throat tightened. Days later, a local blog picked up the story. Then a regional tabloid. The article came with an old photo of me, soot-streaked, face-distant eyes, taken at the Montana ceremony. The headline, "From hero to heartless firefighter refuses to save her own brother." The training center I worked at started getting emails, cancellations. Concerned parents asking, "Is she really the kind of person we want teaching our kids?" The board summoned me for a temporary reputation review. My schedule was quietly cleared. I didn't cry. I had no tears left for this kind of loss. That night I opened the fireproof safe. Inside was the $300,000 check from the state of Montana, still uncashed, corners curled. I held it for a long time. It wasn't just money. It was proof that I mattered once, even when no one looked. Then came the crash. Living room window, shattered. Cold air rushed in like a silent scream. The safe was open. Some files missing. On the floor, a single note ink scrawled in uneven strokes. "If you don't know how to share, someone will decide for you." Police came. No signs of forced entry. No prints. They asked if I had any enemies. I did. But worse than not being believed was starting to doubt myself. The email came on a cold gray afternoon. Subject line, "We owe you more than a medal. Sender Everett Lynn." I stared at the screen for a long time. That name, it took me straight back to the fire the moment I pulled him out the quiet recognition at the gala. We met at a small cafe in Austin, the kind with chipped mugs and wobbly chairs where no one asks questions. He was already there, hands wrapped around a lukewarm espresso. "I'm not here for awards," he said. "I'm here for justice." He slid a leather folder across the table. Inside forged signatures. Surveillance footage. A PDF of the Reddit post metadata traced directly to Bryce's work computer. Screenshots of Bryce opening the door for a gloved man carrying a bag just big enough to fit files. Audio of Bryce bragging about money coming soon. My sister never touches it anyway. My hands trembled. Everett leaned in. "You can press charges, identity theft, fraud, or you can keep pretending silence equals strength." I breathed in deeply. No more silence. That night I posted a photo of the court summons to Bryce Delacroix. Caption: "Sometimes you let the whole forest burn so new things can grow." First comment, Everett, "This fire you lit for yourself." The courthouse was colder than I expected. I wore a navy suit. No entourage. Just a binder of truth. Bryce sat at the defense table, shoulders hunched. My parents behind him, pale and still. The prosecutor laid it all out, voicemail threats, forged documents, staged transfers, then the big one, a fake charity account created by Bryce. Over $200,000 scammed from hospital colleagues, spent on gambling, luxury trips, social clout. The courtroom buzzed. gasps, whispers. Then the judge asked, "Ms. Delacroix, would you like to make a statement?" I stood, voice steady. "I don't want my brother in prison, but I do want the truth to matter, not for revenge, for justice." I walked out of the courthouse neither victorious nor defeated. I didn't smile. I didn't break. I just breathed slow, steady, like it was finally allowed. The following week, I got a call from a woman I didn't know, a rep from an education investment group. She'd read about my training center and asked if I'd consider restarting it, this time in underserved rural communities. I paused, then answered, "Not just consider, I'm ready." I used what remained of the $300,000, the so-called prize everyone once fought over, to build something from the ground up. We called it the Ember Initiative, a place where kids could learn survival, not to be heroes, but to protect their dignity even when no one else sees them. Winter had settled over Austin like breath on glass. On the first morning of Ember, I stood on the front steps, clipboard in hand, checking names. Many faces had returned, some who'd quietly dropped off during the storm. Now they came back. A few offered shy smiles. One boy ran up and hugged me tight. "Miss Maya, I want to be a firefighter like you." That cracked something in me, not from pain, but from healing. Parents came too. One woman handed me a tray of cookies and simply said, "I'm sorry I believed what I read." And then Everett arrived. No suit, no grand speech. Just breakfast sandwiches and a small wooden box. Inside it, a brushed silver ring engraved with a tiny flame. He looked at me and said, "You pulled me out of a burning building, but you also pulled me out of a life I was too afraid to live. Now, I want to build something with you, a different kind of fire. One that keeps us warm. One we don't have to run from." I didn't say anything. I just took his hand. That night I found a letter in my mailbox from my parents. No excuses, no defense, just, "Now we understand you didn't need to be a doctor to make us proud." I folded it and placed it next to an old photo, me in soot-covered gear, eyes glowing with something fierce. That girl had no idea the world would try to break her, but she survived, and so did I.